Hello, Cleveland. Welcome back to another edition of the Dogland Podcast. I am your host, Jackson McCurry, and joining me again as we break down another position group is Jack Duffin. Jack, how you doing, buddy?
It's a sad day. It's the final big position room. We've obviously got special teams that they are real people, but in terms of the offense and defense, it's the beginning of the end.
Yeah, yes, it is. It's like you said, it's the last big position group, the safety position. Is what we're going to focus on today, and then Friday will be the conclusion. We'll focus on special teams, and then Jack will, I think, give a final recap about everything on the offseason roster deep dive. But, today we're looking at the safety position. Jack, when you broke down like each position group and how many players a team carries on average, you said there's typically 10 defensive backs, and, teams will carry usually 6 corners and then obviously 4 safeties. But, when you were talking about the linebackers last week, you said, they might drop a linebacker to pick up another corner or another safety. Go ahead and explain that.
Yeah, so where Woods has spoke about how he wants plenty of nickel and dime, we obviously saw a lack of DBs really hurt the Browns across the season. So they all want to know, hey, let's have more depth. Obviously, you can call special teams guys up, etc. But you don't want to be relying on that. That gets messy. So I think they will go with 11 DBs. It's going to be interesting to see, hey, what's the breakdown of 7 to 4 or 6 to 5. But in all honesty, the last 2 guys out of the 11, they're just special teamers. So if they're both cornerbacks, does it really matter? If they're both safeties, does it really matter? No. So, yeah, it doesn't bother me too much which way that goes, because if it's a 3 safety base defense, for instance, in which case we'll have 3 starting safeties, 2 starting corners, then if that third safety goes down, whoever's playing, say, more of that nickel role, they could easily go, we're going to use the slot corner next. It's not necessarily safety has to replace safety. So, yeah, it's one just to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I feel like if they do, if Woods does want this 3 safety base, that I think they would trend more towards we should go with the 5th safety instead of a 7th corner. But like you said, like when you get down towards the bottom of the depth chart, those guys are mainly special teamers, and that if the 3rd safety were to go down, that they would just fill it in with, I think, the nickel, the slot corner.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if you go in from sort of they're going to play nickel and dime. So let's say you've got a 3rd safety and then your 6th DB is your slot corner. If your 5th DB goes down, who's a safety, you're probably more necessarily going to your 6th DB, who's probably your slot corner, to step up into that role, next man up. And then, they'll probably then have the safety, who's safety 4, coming in as your DB7, who then is there playing nickel. They're playing dime. It's just sort of next man up mentality. But they want plenty of starting or at least rotational level DBs on this team, because we saw it's what blows out. And the weird thing is you don't actually need to play. So if you wanted to play 5 DBs every snap, all 5 could play 100%. It's not like the D-line. But at the same time, you've got to have that depth. Andrew Berry said he can never have enough good corners, and by sort of association, you can throw safeties in there. They just need more guys. You can't be going cheap here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and when you look at starting free safety, I think a lot of people want to go ahead and pencil Grant Delpit in as the starting free safety. He missed his entire rookie year with an Achilles injury. But I think you and I are both in the same mindset, Jack, that you can't guarantee on Delpit, especially with an Achilles injury. You've seen guys be able to come back. Richard Sherman is probably one of the more recent ones. He's obviously a corner, not a safety, but those are severe injuries. It's not always a guarantee that a guy will come back and be the same player he was before the injury. So, and like you said, Andrew Berry's always talking about, you can never have enough depth and like a next man up mentality. And I feel like they're going to go into this offseason thinking we can't guarantee 100% that Delpit's going to be the same guy. So we should focus on getting a starting caliber safety. And then if Delbert comes back and is the same player, it's an added bonus for the Browns secondary.
Yeah, and it's similar to sort of the greedy point of Delbert had two amazing years in college and then had the down year where he was drafted, but it was a good pick. There's lots of upside. He's then missed that entire rookie season. And in all honesty, he's not developing, adapting to the NFL in that time. And if we go back over the last 4 seasons, there's been 4 rookies in total that have come in and had a really, really good first year. They're Derwin James, Jesse Bates, Marcus Williams, John Johnson. And Grant Delpit is effectively going to have a rookie year next year. And it's risky to go, hey, we'll rely on this guy. And if he isn't the player we hope, and the Achilles injury is something, but he's never played a snap in the NFL. And you hear people, the way they talk about him, you think he's an all-pro. If it was Myles Garrett missed a season, I've got no concerns Myles Garrett's going to go out there and still be an above-average starter, whatever injury hits him. We're talking about a guy that's never taken a snap in the NFL. And the way he's sort of discussed it, you would think he's on a Hall of Fame career and he's just missed year 5 out of his career with an Achilles injury. I'm not saying don't calm the hype, but he can't be relied on as a day one starter and going, yep, he's there. We can just have sort of youngsters in the backfield depth. Safety is a really, really important position. They're playing more snaps than everyone else. You've got your D-line. Myles Garrett's never going to play 100% of the snaps, whereas your safeties are out there 100% of the time. Coverage is king. Pass rush is important, but it makes the real difference. So, no, we need to get one. Is it free agency? Is it the draft? We'll start with some free agents. It's a beautiful class. And will it stay this way by the time it comes? Probably not. First name, Justin Simmons. I think they'd be mad to let him go. Crazy things have happened, but he's probably staying there. But they can easily set aside some money because it's not ridiculous, the price point. It's 14 to 16 million for these guys, which isn't mad considering their age and stuff. So another one that I think is going to be gone is May. I think the Jets would be crazy to let him go. So you're looking at names: Anthony Harris from the Vikings, Marcus Williams from the Saints, and John Johnson from the Rams. For me, Harris, I'm a little less keen on. He's slightly older. He saw a regression in 2020, but so did every defender for the Vikings. But he has been top 3 safety the 2 years before that. So the guy's class. But for me, my crush in this lot, and I think just because we know about age, Marcus Williams, I think will be really, really interesting. He's only like 24 and a half, 25. So crazy young, or John Johnson. I think one of those two guys will be a Brown come day one of free agency.
Yeah, I mean, with Anthony Harris, the rumors were there a lot last offseason that like this was going to be the Browns' top target. He obviously got tagged. There was trade rumors after that, but I don't think anything ever formulated. Yeah, I'm with you on Williams and Johnson. They are, in that prime part of like they're getting ready to hit their prime of their career. They're in the right age to grow with the rest of this young Browns defense, and they're both extremely talented. And both of their teams that they're currently with, they have no financial flexibility to be able to keep them. So this is a prime spot for the Browns to be able to go out, get that safety that Joe Woods needs on the defensive side of the ball. And, you slot them in with what we already have in the secondary, Denzel Ward, a guy that we're going to talk about here shortly. You hope Greedy Williams, you hope Grant Delpit. Then that secondary looks really good compared to last year when it was just Denzel Ward, the next guy we're going to discuss, and a bunch of veterans.
Yeah, no, so he's there, and there's talent. The one other thing I'll touch on is draft. They could go this route, and as I said, Grant Delpit's risky, so you'll be thinking, well, it just said you can't rely on a rookie. You can almost add 2 guys and double bet on yourself. So relying on just Grant Delpit and going, hey, first, second round pick, he was in that level, even though he went in the second. We can't rely on one. But if you had 2, then you're in a nice position where you'd naturally assume, hey, one of the 2 is going to hit. You'd then probably bring in some veteran depth, which we'll talk about later on. But it's certainly a route you could go of going, hey, we might bring in a veteran sort of on the cheap that can fill this role. But at least we've got someone in here who 2 really promising players. You could have Delpit, you could have this, say it's a 1-2 draft pick, and then we've got the next guy we spoke about, which gives you a really, really exciting young core. I just think they'll go cheap and lots of upside in the cornerback room, and that necessarily leads to you spend some money on one safety, because even if Denzel Ward gets extended this year, we've got 2 years before his money hits. We don't really have any sort of massive commitments in terms of the corner and safety room. Ronnie Harrison, who we'll touch on next, has still got a 4th year of his rookie deal. He's not going to be crazy money. So they could easily sign a guy 3-4 years. Your Marcus Williams, probably 4-year deal. And that's fine, because that's basically off the books by the time Ward money hits, any of these other guys start hitting. So, I would say the 1-star signing on defense, the entire defense, other than potentially JJ Watt thing, if they decide to do that, big money is Mr. Williams.
Without a doubt. And, you touched on Ronnie Harrison. I think we could both say he's going to be the starting strong safety going into 2021. What a robbery that Andrew Berry pulled off with getting him from Jacksonville for a 5th-round pick. Everybody was wondering, like, the first couple games of the year, where's Ronnie Harrison? Then finally, I think it was the Colts game, he finally exploded onto the scene, had a pick 6, and he was an impact player on that defense throughout the year when he was on the field. Obviously, there was injury issues there, but great acquisition by Andrew Berry, and you feel confident that he's going to be the strong safety, at least for 2021. But there's also the outside shot that if he plays well again this upcoming season, that they give him some kind of an extension and keep him in the fold.
Yeah, no, and these are the sort of trades that really make the difference to a team, because quite frankly, the talent level between Ronnie Harrison and Jamal Adams isn't as crazy as people would assume. Yeah, if you ask me which of the two do I want on my team, I'm going to tell you Jamal Adams. If you told me one's a 5th-round pick, one's 2 first-round picks, you'd be nuts for going, yeah, I want the Jamal Adams side of that deal. It's just ridiculous. We've seen defensive playmakers change hands. A guy went to the Ravens, Calais Campbell, 5th-round pick. You can get these guys, if the right situation, you've got to keep shopping around. And it's why you'll always hear Andrew Berry or the Cleveland Browns name around every deal. It used to be in the past, agents just trying to push up the cost of their player because the Browns had a lot of cap space and rollover there. But now, it's even we heard it around the Cam Newton deal. And you'd be like, why do we need Cam Newton? Probably don't need Cam Newton. But Andrew Berry's willing to sniff it out, because if it weren't that cheap, I would have happily had a 3rd QB, Cam Newton, for 3-4 million last year. It's not going to change anything. Keep investing, sort of looking for these small deals, and it's not a sexy trade, but it's a more meaningful trade and a more beneficial trade for the team. So really, really good addition. I think they probably wait it out another year on extending Ronnie Harrison, just because they want to answer that health question. And also they want to see what else plays out, because if you do spend a load of money on, say it's Marcus Williams, then you can extend him. I don't think it's going to be an expensive deal. It's something I'm going to start looking at next week. It's tough to do because he's not a top starter, which they're the easy deals to predict. Where once you get into this sort of tier 3, 4, 5 sort safety, then that's it. And before anyone says, oh, it's not even a starter at that level, no, you can get down to like tier 5 and you're still talking about starters. Just to touch on, like, Wyatt Teller's a tier 3 guard based over his 3 years so far. That doesn't stop him being one of the like top 10 guards in the NFL. It's just when you're looking at tiers of deals. So yeah, I'm gonna look into Ronnie Harrison, have a look. I don't know if I'll end up coming out with an answer. There might never be an article on it, but I'm certainly going to investigate.
I feel like it's a challenge that you could definitely try to pull through and come up with some kind of number for him. But yeah, I feel like 2021 is pretty much going to be like a prove it year for Harrison. If he balls out the way he did last year for the Browns, he'll be in line for an extension. But I mean, the health is obviously the biggest issue, and to see what is he going to do in another year in this system, it'll be fascinating to watch. we didn't guarantee Delbert being the starting free safety, but Jack, in your article, you do have him as the starting nickel / rotational safety in a dime scheme. And I feel like that's a good way to ease him into the NFL. You say that this is a player that, will only play around 25% of the snaps. When they're in dime package, nickel obviously is a big role in today's NFL. You need a solid third defensive back behind the two starting corners. So I feel like this is a good way to ease Delpit in and not just throw him into the fire as a starting safety.
Yeah, so it's one of them where it might even be a case where they start the season more with a three-corner nickel and then move more to a three safety nickel. So I would say it's really a guess at this point, but I'm working on the theory of 25% of the time you're going to have three linebackers out there, 4 DBs. 50% of the time you're going to be in nickel, so 5 DBs, 2 linebackers, and then 25% of the time you're going to have 1 linebacker and 6 DBs. So if you're saying, hey, every time we're in nickel, we're going to have 3 safeties out there, he might be your third safety, but you're still getting 75% of snaps, which is a trial by fire for any sort of player having their first snaps in the NFL. So don't think, oh, he's not starting, he's never going to get out there. No, it's not going to be that case. And if he's out there in only nickel situations to start the season, that's still 25% of snaps. So he's going to get plenty of opportunity as this third safety on the roster. And it's not someone that you're tied to, because you could go, hey, Ronnie Harrison, we like you. You're a good player after this season, but Grant Delpit's awesome. We maybe drafted a guy late. We're going a different route, and you're going to see guys that they're going to go be starters for other teams in the NFL. And we don't mean like Austin Reiter's going to go be a starter at center because he was a UDFA and someone else gave him a shot. We're going to let go guys who are legit starters and go, we just can't afford that guy because we're going to commit to this person instead, or we're going to give Grant Delpit the opportunity and draft a guy behind, because we could be looking in a year's time where we go, we're not going to draft an entire starter in the draft. We've got our 22 locked down. This draft's all about 1 year in advance, and that's how the great teams drafting. They're looking at day 1, 2 picks. That's 1 year in advance. Round 4 to 7. That's 2 years in advance. You're looking, because you really want to see, hey, can this guy develop in there? So no, I think Grant Delpit, that's a sort of perfect role for him. You've taken the pressure off, but yeah, by the end of the season, he could be playing 75% of snaps, and that's awesome.
Absolutely. I don't feel like they need to rush him out there, but of course, who knows what will happen with the off-season training, workouts, mini camp, training camp, all that. I mean, just ease him in and then, turn him loose when you feel like he's ready. I think they did the same with Harrison. It's a completely different situation because he's already been in the league for a couple years, but you don't want to do too much to Delpit, especially coming off the injury. Just ease him into a role, and then whatever happens after that happens. Jack, when you look at the depth at the safety room right now, there really isn't any. Sheldrick Redwine's the only guy under contract right now. We had Andrew Sendejo and Carl Joseph here last year, both on 1-year deals. Both are going to be unrestricted free agents. When you look at the depth, like you said at the top of the show, these guys are predominantly going to be in special teams roles, and they could, get into the rotation maybe as a third safety, but more or less these guys will be special teamers. You could see potential veterans coming in and be more or less, mentors to, the young safeties we have in the room, but I think you want to take a shot on guys late in the draft or undrafted guys that can contribute immediately to special teams.
Yeah, so I don't think there's a future here for Sheldrick Redwine. We all heard fans' views on Andrew Sendejo, and if Sendejo's getting more snaps ahead of Redwine, that says more about Redwine than anything to do with Sendejo. So let that be the judgment. If you think Sendejo was bad, Sheldrick Redwine's worse in the view of this coaching staff. So I'm very much of the view you move on. If Sheldrick Redwine was great on specials, like sort of an MJ Stewart, Carlson, some of these other guys, Mr. Thomas, then you're sat here going, yeah, you can keep him there. It doesn't matter that he might not be a great safety. You can stick him 4 if you have 5th safety, and you feel good about him there. So I don't think it's anyone on the roster that's filling that role. I don't think Kyle Joseph or Sendejo's back. I wouldn't hate Kyle Joseph if they brought him back as a 4th safety. I think he's the sort of guy where they might go, hey, we'll bring in another sort of round 1, round 2 draft pick. We'll go Harrison and then sort of Kyle Joseph, and it gives you that sort of option there. Another 1-year deal, but I don't think he's a guy they bring in. One guy, apparently, there's probably some fans of this podcast that follow a certain university, not so far from where the Cleveland Browns play. This guy that Hugh Jackson fell in love with, he's available probably on like a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. I would say bring him in. It's Mr. Malik Hooker. For me, that's ideal. I could understand why he would say no if the Browns approach him, just because he's saying, hey, look, if you've signed Marcus Williams, you've got 2 other guys. I could come there on your 4th safety. I might not even play a snap this year. But I think that's the sort of deal I'd really push on, because there's no risk there bringing in a Malik Hooker and going, hey, 1 year, if he never plays a snap and he gets injured in camp, you've not really lost anything. It's all good. So I would bring him in because the upside's huge. And yeah, if someone goes down, then I'm up for giving him a shot and seeing what happens. So those are the sort of 1-year guys that take a punt on in free agency. And then I think we'd probably draft someone. If we don't go that route, even if we do go that route, why not draft someone in the 4th, 5th round? Bring them in, and if you like what you see across the year, it's a nice, easy transition off of Harrison, because lots of times that they'll bring guys in, and if they go, hey, this guy's not got it, let's extend Harrison, give him 3 more years, and this guy's either awesome depth, or we can flip him and send him somewhere else where he can play. So I think somewhere between a Malik Hooker 1-year sort of prove it deal, or they go the route of let's draft someone. Obviously, it's not a massive priority of the draft, because if you've got Marcus Williams, you've got Ronnie Harrison, you've got Delpit, even if you draft someone, they're never going to be a starter, ideally, in the next 3 years. So you're not going to spend decent draft capital on them. You're looking at that potentially 4th round at the earliest.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, if they do go the Malik Hooker route or even bring back Carl Joseph, I feel like that's probably like the max thing that they would do in terms of depth, bringing in a veteran on a 1-year deal, very cheap. I feel like that's the best case scenario. Like you said, they could go in the draft, add someone late, but if you already have Ronnie Harrison, Grant Delpit, you sign a big time free agent at the position like a Marcus Williams, I don't see them spending much more resources into, adding such a talented depth in the safety room. I feel like Malik Hooker or Carl Joseph be like a $2 or $3 million deal on a 1-year deal. I don't know if that number is too high. I feel like it would be a little bit lower, but yeah, just do what they did last year. Bring Carl Joseph in on a 1-year deal, see what happens. If they did the same with Malik Hooker or another potential safety, it's not a bad idea just to see what they got and what they could potentially bring.
Yeah, and if you're thinking of, hey, what goes on in front office? And hey, I've never been in a front office, but I'm going to give you a guess at how these smart guys are going to operate. They're going to have a matrix there. They'll look through every single free agent, everyone on the roster, and everyone sort of potentially in the draft. Not so much down to, hey, you're trying to predict who's going to be there in the 3rd or 4th rounds, nuts, but sort of a rough idea of where the value of the draft is. And then they're going to sit there and go, right, we want a starting level safety. Here's the guys we want, and here's the top number. And they're going to start that. And if the market says, hey, it's more expensive, they're out. They're not going to sit there and pay an extra $3 million a year because this is the guy they're married to. They'll just be out. And they'll have loads of different combinations of like, well, if we get Marcus Williams or John Johnson, here's what we do with the room. If we don't get that, here's another thing we do with the room, because we might bring Carl Joseph back here and everything that plays off of that. So they'll have loads of different ones, and that's going to be for every single room, and there'll be interlinked rooms, sort of corner and safety. if we spend extra on safety, here's what we're going to do at corner. If we spend extra at corner because a free agent we really like is available, here's how we're going to balance it out with safety. And they're going to be looking at a 3-year window as well with that. But there's going to be so many moving pieces, and it'd be fascinating to sit there and sort of be in these discussions, because the same thing myself and Jack have sat here and spoke about. They're sitting there going, hey, here's all the options. They start with a really wide board, and we've seen where they're involved in all these discussions. They put everything on the table. Let's chat about this, and they'll take lots off. No, we're not interested in this guy, not interested in that. Oh, we reckon this guy's going to be on that. Oh, here's our max pay for him. He's off. And so they're going to have a really, really detailed view, and that's really promising, because leave no stone unturned. Look at everything on the table and get down there, because there is always little deals that happen. It was a good strategy with bringing in loads of one-year prove deals. We saw it probably across the whole NFL just because of COVID. But that opportunity will stay. Your Gary Conleys, your Malik Hookers, go and bring these guys in. I was banging the table for a guy, Washington. It was at the Eagles before, cornerback, Ronald Darby. Those are the sort of prove it deals. Bring them in and see what happens, because you're not committed, and if they're great, hey, you can either extend them or you get a comp pick. So it's win-wins.
Absolutely. Jack, as we wrap it up, I mean, we're through the safety room. Friday's our last episode of the roster deep dive as we focus on special teams and the conclusion. Like, this month's gone pretty quick. I mean, I can't believe we're almost done with this.
Yeah, it's bittersweet. I've loved these shows, but they are coming to an end. So, no, it's one that, yeah, I'm always looking for more ideas, things to write about. So I've touched on Ronnie Harrison. You obviously had the Denzel Ward article yesterday. There's just so much stuff going on. Any ideas? If you think, hey, I'd love an article on this, let me know. I'm not going to write on guys taking pay cuts. You know who I'm on about, listeners. But that's not my style. I'm not writing a piece saying, hey, this dude deserves a 40% pay cut. I was tempted. I might look at what would he get on the open market if he was let go. But I'm probably not going to write it. Sorry.
But yeah, absolutely. All our listeners, all our readers, please go check out Jack's off-season roster deep dive series on thedogland.com. It's excellent work. Go back in the archive and listen to previous episodes if you haven't. I dropped the episode on Tuesday where we talked some draft with Alex Hale, who's our draft guru. It's a great episode. And then tomorrow, which will be Thursday, because this is dropping on a Wednesday, Anthony comes back into the studio. We go over all the coaching hires that went across the league this year. We broke all those down and what the direction of each franchise is going forward into 2021 and beyond. So hope you all like that. And as always, go check out thedogland.com. And thank you for listening to this podcast. Jack, go ahead and plug your Twitter and where people can find you.
Yeah, so it's at Jack Duffin, DUFFIN. DMs are open. Send in any ideas, any cap questions, any roster questions. Happy to answer them all. Thank you for all the love with the Cap Magic article that went out last week. So many people enjoyed that. Loads of different things. And I'll keep coming back to it, because stuff like void years, backloading deals, option bonuses, this is stuff you're going to see, not just this year from the Browns. You're probably going to see it in years to come, because, hey, we've got a good roster. Now we've got to pay some guys.
And as always, follow me on Twitter at JackMcCurry08. Follow the Dogland at the Dogland on Twitter and as well as Facebook. And until next time, go Browns.
Go Browns.